Today we'll be talking about how to protect your hearing here on the Percussion Discussion. As musicians, hearing is one of the most important tools we have in our tool bag, and surprising to many, it's also one of the easiest to damage too. We are constantly using our hearing to tune our instrument, integrate our sound into an ensemble, and much, much more. Now, due to the nature of what we do, we are constantly exposed to extremely loud sounds, whether it be playing with many, many players in an orchestra and having all that sound come to your ears, or simply playing your own instrument where you're extremely close to the sound source. It is very, very easy to damage your hearing over time if you do not protect it with the correct equipment, and if you do not use protection, you will end up having more than normal hearing loss as you get older, making your job as a musician much, much more difficult. So in this video, we're going to talk about different things you can do to protect your hearing so that even as you get older, you will protect your hearing and be able to continue doing what you love. When discussing hearing, the best place to start is how much sound is too much sound. Well, OSHA defines 85 decibels as the point where sound can start damaging your hearing. To describe 85 decibels, that's typically being in a large group where there's some conversation going on, so maybe being at a small sports stadium or even in the cafeteria at school. 85 decibels can often be deceiving, and we don't often notice that the sound in a room is getting to that point. So how do we understand how much time we can be exposed to a sound before it actually starts damaging our hearing? Well, at 85 decibels, you can be exposed to that sound source for about 8 hours before it's going to begin damaging our hearing. So for some of us, that might be a school day where we're constantly in groups where we're having loud conversation. For others, that might be on a work site where there's a constant sound going on that might be at 85 decibels or over. Anyways, you have to be conscious that at that 8-hour point, at 85 decibels, you might start seeing some hearing loss and some damage to your hearing from then on. Now, the problem with hearing is that exposure time goes down very, very quickly as you go up in the decibel range. Every 5 decibels, normally you have to cut that exposure time in half. So at 85 decibels, you can be exposed to it for 8 hours before you start damaging your hearing. However, if I move up to 90 decibels, which isn't that much louder, that's basically just a louder conversation, my exposure time then goes down to 4 hours. Go up to 95 decibels, I'm now down to 2 hours. 100 decibels, an hour, 105 decibels, 30 minutes. Well, I think you get the point. Now, as musicians in an ensemble setting and a solo setting, we're definitely not sticking to 85 decibels or under. We are actually exposed to much louder sounds. From a percussion standpoint, a typical cymbal crash at forte or fortissimo can range from 115 to 125 decibels. Now, that exposure time is extremely small, and we can damage our hearing with that very, very quickly. So, when you're in an ensemble or you're in any type of practice situation, you must be very conscious of the amount of sound in that room and understand how much exposure time is too much to that sound. Now, there are charts online, and I'm actually going to put one right next to me from Etymonic Research that'll show you kind of an example of what those exposure times may be depending on your instrument or depending on the environment that you may be in. If you want to take a look at it, just go ahead and pause the video and you can look at it for just a second. But now we're going to move on to hearing protection. An important thing to understand about hearing protection is that it does not automatically protect you from all sound around you. Instead, its primary purpose is to extend the amount of time you can be exposed to a particular sound. So let's take a sound source of 100 decibels as an example. At 100 decibels, I can be exposed to that sound for about an hour before it risks damaging my hearing. But if I put earplugs in that have 15 decibels of isolation, that's going to take that sound down from 100 decibels, where I have an hour before I risk my hearing, down to 85 decibels, where I have 8 hours before I can start damaging my hearing. Now, this is going to give me much more time before I have to start worrying about what's going on with my hearing, and will likely allow me to get through whatever rehearsal or environment I'm in. So, with that said, let's talk about hearing protection itself. Now, my main recommendation is using earplugs, mainly because they are discreet, they stay out of the way, and normally earplugs are going to have the clearest sound coming through your earplugs, which I'll describe more in a second. I'm going to give you a few of my main recommendations at different pricing levels. I'll put pictures of them on the screen so you can kind of see what I'm referencing, and then I'll also put links to them in the description just so you can go and check them out for yourself, and maybe even get yourself some hearing protection if you don't have some already, which I highly recommend. So first we'll start off with just the foam earplugs that you can find basically on every worksite and on every shelf at every store. Foam earplugs are great if you need a ton of isolation. They normally range from 20 to 30 decibels of isolation, so they will knock out just about any sound that you may be exposed to. With that said, they block out a lot of the tones of that sound, so it's going to sound very muffled, very groggy, and you're not going to hear a precise picture of the sound that's around you. So in an instrumental setting, maybe in an orchestra, you're going to have a hard time hearing what's actually going on around you in the orchestra because that sound is not going to be very clear. Normally, we just use foam earplugs as a backup option. We just keep some in our bag in case we've actually forgotten our better earplugs. Now, the step up from that, which I kind of consider the mid-tier earplugs, are some like from Etymonic Research. They make a great general earplug that I think gives about 17 decibels of isolation. They're actually the ones that I personally use. And then there's also a great earplug from Erasers, which is what my professor uses. And again, they're great. They give about the same isolation as the Etymonic Research ones. Really, on this tier, the decision just comes down to what's going to be more comfortable in your ears. And you can buy both, see what's more comfortable. That's completely up to you. But again, the better part about these at the higher price level is that they're going to give you a lot more clarity when you're trying to listen to a sound source. When I wear mine in an orchestra, I can hear all the details from the different sections in my orchestra, and I'm not going to have a problem perceiving what's going on in the ensemble and what I'm playing from my instrument. And then the top tier of hearing protection are musicians' earplugs, which are actually custom fitted using custom molds of your ears so that you get the perfect fit. And then they also come with tons of different types of filters, meaning I can actually swap out how much isolation I get with those earplugs. I have a few friends who use these and they love them. They are very expensive, but all of them say that they are definitely worth it if you're going to be around loud sounds quite a bit in your life. Those filters can typically range from like 5 decibels, 10 decibels, 15 decibels, and 20 decibels, and you can swap them out depending on what situation you may be in. So if you have a lot of money to drop on hearing protection, they are a great way to go, and you probably won't need to buy new hearing protection after that for some time. They will last you for quite a long time. Now for a couple final notes about hearing protection. Do not let the first time you wear hearing protection be in a rehearsal with tons of other people. You're going to feel very weird when you wear hearing protection for the first time. Number one, because you have something that's a little odd inside your ears that might even be slightly uncomfortable. And number two, because no matter how clear an earplug might be, it is going to slightly change the sound of your instrument and everybody playing around you. So my recommendation is that you take your earplugs into the practice room and do your practice sessions with them in. Maybe just start with doing for a quarter of your practice session and then move up to a half of it. And then finally, do your full practice sessions while using earplugs. Number one, just to protect your hearing while you're practicing. And then number two, so you can get comfortable not only with the feeling of earplugs in your ears, but also with the sound that you're going to be hearing from your instrument while you're playing with them in. That way, when you do get to your rehearsal, you're going to be completely comfortable playing in them and you won't have any problems at all. And then my final thing is just please do try your best to actually use hearing protection. While at this point in your life it may not seem as something that's very important, and it may not seem like something that needs to be a priority in your life, but I promise you that later on in your life you will be thankful that you have used hearing protection, because you will have maintained much more of your hearing as opposed to if you had not used it at all. Unfortunately, hearing research really is a modern thing, and even the last couple of generations did not know all that we know about hearing protection and hearing loss that we know today. So there are many musicians from the past couple of generations who are living today with lots of hearing damage and who really can't even play their instrument very well anymore because they're not able to hear what's going on, and they can't have critical enough hearing to be involved in large ensembles. So do yourself the favor, wear the hearing protection. You will thank yourself later on in life, and I thank you for doing it for yourself. Thank you for joining me here on the Percussion Discussion. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them down in the comment section. And if you want to see more percussion-related content like this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and I'll have more content out soon. Take care. Goodbye.